Today, Chevy recapping a rapper got killed for making Georgia in prison by a gang. He was a GD and he got killed by the blood. He believed he was blood and he got killed by the GD. Let's see, chat. Let's see what's going on with this. All right, let's get to it.
Shit crazy how you cuss again time. If I care my off, I'm gonna run them down with a good zone with whole 25. Thought them got him, I've been slinging 9. I've been in that field, how I'm out of bounds. She crazy.
Underway tonight as 3 inmates are dead and a correctional officer injured. That's after an altercation at the Washington State Prison Sunday night. The men and the prison are on the screen behind me right here. Ahmaud Hatcher, Jimmy Trammell, and Teddy Jackson died in what officials believe was a gang-related fight.
Yeah, Jimmy Trammell lost his life in that incident. He was actually set to come home today after serving his sentence, but his family says instead of celebrating, they were left holding a candlelight vigil.
A lot of people think jail is just time. Like you sit down, do your months or your years, then you walk back out and hit reset. That's not how it works. The moment those doors shut, you're living under a different set of rules. Rules that don't care about your release date, your plans, or the people waiting on the outside. And the scary part is how unpredictable it is. Some folks survive decades without a scratch, while somebody else can lose their life on an ordinary day they thought would end like any other. This case is one of the worst kinds to hear about, because it wasn't one life lost in isolation. It was multiple inmates killed in the same clash, in the same facility, on the same day. And one of them was close enough to freedom, just 2 days to his release date, and then this? We're going to break down what happened, who was involved, and the bigger prison gang machine underneath it. No preaching, no angle, just the story, with respect for the dead and the people who had to witness it. Remember to like, drop your thoughts, and share to save lives. You're watching Hidden Crime Network.
He did 10 years in his prison, and he didn't make it home.
Home. It's where 42-year-old Jimmy Trammell expected to be Wednesday after 10 years as an inmate with the Georgia Department of Corrections for felony burglary charges.
He was going to be taking the bus back here, and he needed to be picked up from the bus station. And I was going to pick him up from the bus station, but I didn't get that chance. That's his life.
For Aquinas and Trammell, the past 10 years have been rough. They lost both of their parents and 2 siblings, but Trammell's release was a chance at a second life, the turning of a new leaf.
He talked about proving to me a better side of him than what I know. And that was taken away from me. And
on Sunday, January 11th, 2026, violence erupted at Washington State Prison in Davisboro, Georgia. Officials said the disturbance was gang-affiliated, and it left 3 inmates dead and more than a dozen others injured, including a correctional officer. This happened during visitation hours in the early afternoon. That detail matters because visitation is supposed to be the closest thing to normal life inside a prison. Families trying to hold on to connection in a place designed to strip it away. But that day, the visiting area became the center of the storm.
How dangerous it really was, how much worse it could have been.
But she says something felt off when she saw guards bolt out of the visitation area Sunday afternoon, leaving 1 female officer inside.
Something going on. We heard very loud, almost yelling coming from the walkie-talkies. You could hear her say, "Don't open that door, you can't come in here."
Shouting, telling them to get out. The witness says the group overpowered a guard, taking his keys to then break into the visiting room.
The prisoners that were trying to come through the door were right behind her, hot on her heels, because there's blood and weapons, and they just...
By the time control was restored, the Georgia Department of Corrections said staff had used non-lethal measures, and the facility was brought back under control around 3 p.m. 3 names would soon be attached to the headlines: Jimmy Lee Trammell, 42, Ahmaud Hatcher, 23, and Teddy Dwayne Jackson, 27. Now pause right there. Because the question isn't only what sparked the fight. The bigger question is how a prison ends up in a state where conflict can explode so fast in such a public part of the facility that people are left running for safety during a visit. And once you understand what Washington State Prison has a reputation for, what happened next starts to feel less like a surprise and more like a warning.
Washington State Prison, or WSP as people call it, sits in the middle of rural Georgia in a county most folks have never heard of. It opened back in 1991 as a close security facility, meaning it's designed to hold some of the state's most violent offenders. The capacity is around 1,500 inmates, and the reputation? It's one of Georgia's most dangerous prisons, especially when gang tensions are running high. And those tensions, they've been running high for years. Georgia Department of Corrections intelligence reports and court filings have documented active gang structures operating inside WSP. We're talking about gangster disciples, GDs, Bloods, Crips, ghost-faced gangsters, white supremacist groups, independent street crews that align with bigger organizations depending on what's happening on the outside. These aren't just names people throw around. These are organized factions that control things inside the prison. Contraband flow, protection rackets, drug distribution, weapon access. And when conflicts happen, they don't stay internal. A lot of the beefs at WSP are tied to street disputes from Atlanta, Macon, Savannah, Augusta, places where the same gang codes apply whether you're locked up or free. Here's the thing people on the outside don't always get. When you step into those prison walls, into that 4x4 concrete cell, the rules shift. There's no running. There's no calling time out. You're in a world where alliances can keep you alive or get you killed. And sometimes the difference between the two comes down to decisions you didn't even make. So when officials say this January 11th riot was gang affiliated, what they're really saying is that this violence didn't start that day. It was already there, waiting for the right spark. But here's what they're not telling you. How were these gangs staying so organized? How were they coordinating from inside concrete and steel? The answer is darker and more sophisticated than most people realize. 4 months before this riot, Washington County was dealing with a different problem, but it was connected to the same system: drones. Not the recreational kind. We're talking organized criminal operations using drones to drop contraband directly into Washington State Prison.
This is a huge...
Listen, it's called Connect Team, and it's insane. I don't do schedules or timesheets manually anymore.
And it works?
Oh, like you wouldn't believe it. My team puts in their availability, I click auto schedule, and boom, there it goes. No more Excel, no more phone calls, no more group chats. Oh, perfect schedule, like that.
Damn, so all you gotta do is post it.
Yeah, my team loves that it's just one app, so they see their shifts, they can approve it, and I know it's covered.
But wait, what if there's like a last minute change? I mean, that's the afternoon gone, right?
So in that case, I just blast a shift for my team to claim. Everyone sees it, and I just assign the first one to pick it up. It literally takes 2 minutes. I'm telling you, it's all in the app. So they clock in. I can see who's working, who's late in real time, and their hours go.
Criminal operation being run from within the Georgia State Prison facility.
Sheriff Joel Cochran described it as a sophisticated criminal network running across the state with the prison as the central hub. His office was responding to drone activity near the facility almost every other week. And what they were finding in these drops? Marijuana, tobacco, methamphetamine, cell phones, even food and clothing. In October 2025, deputies arrested 4 suspects during a drone drop operation. They recovered the drone, the controller, cellophane-wrapped packages, and phones. The setup was efficient. One car served as the getaway for the contraband, another carried the drone pilot. But here's what makes this bigger than just smuggling. Sheriff Cochran said gangs were coordinating these operations from inside the prison. Inmates with contraband cell phones were running the show from their cells, setting up drug deals, scamming people on the outside, intimidating witnesses in active cases, ordering hits. By the end of 2025, the sheriff's office had made arrests in 17 drone-related cases. And get this, 74 out of 170 inmates in the Washington County Jail were facing charges tied to prison contraband operations. That's 44% of the jail population. Sheriff Cochran didn't mince words. This is a huge criminal operation being run from within the Georgia State Prison facility. Now, imagine you're an inmate with access to phones, money flowing in from the outside, and the ability to coordinate moves like you're still on the street. You're not just doing time, you're running an empire. And when someone threatens that empire, when rival gangs clash over territory, product, or respect, that's when Visitation Day turns into a war zone. And that's exactly what three men were about to walk into.
Washington County Sheriff says they are battling a sophisticated criminal network operating all around the state. Nearly half of the suspects in Sheriff Joel Cochran's county jail are charged in drone operations. Hunter King explains to us how Sheriff Cochran says groups use the drones to smuggle contraband into the state prison.
Washington County's sheriff says they respond to drone activity near the state prison almost every other week. Sergeant C.J. Davis describes what they find.
Marijuana, tobacco, methamphetamine, clothing, food, phones.
Davis has worked at the sheriff's office for 8 years. He arrested 4 suspects in October during a drone drop operation. Deputies recovered a drone, a controller, cellophane-wrapped packages, and a phone.
One car was actually the driver car of the drone and the illegal contraband, and one car was actually the drone pilots, as you so to speak.
The operations involve people from different parts of the state. Sheriff Joel Cochran says gangs run these criminal networks from inside Georgia prisons. He says the contraband phones enable inmates to commit crimes from their cells.
They're running scams from this jail, coordinating illegal activity through gang involvement with drugs, intimidating witnesses.
The sheriff's office has made arrests in 17 drone drop cases this year. He says 74 of the 170 inmates in the county jail face charges related to prison drop cases. That's 44% of the jail population.
This is a huge criminal operation being run from within the Georgia State Prison facility.
He says only 2 Washington County residents have faced arrests in these cases over the past 5 to 6 years. The sheriff says most suspects come from other parts of Georgia. Reporting in Washington County, Hunter King, 13 WMAZ.
Let's talk about the first victim, Teddy Dwayne Jackson, 27 years old. But if you knew him from the inside, you knew him by his rap name, Two Clips.
Two Clips.
Teddy wasn't just doing time quietly. He was making noise, literally. He'd been putting out music videos and teasers from inside Washington State Prison, promoting himself as an artist while locked up. And he wasn't shy about his affiliations either. According to records, Teddy was a documented member of the Gangster Disciples, the GDs. Teddy had been locked up since 2019 when he was just 21 years old. The arrest happened in Macon, Georgia, at a house on the 2800 block of Blunt Street. Bibb County Sheriff's deputies showed up to serve warrants on Teddy and found 4 other men inside with him, all of them felons, all of them armed. When deputies searched the residence, they found 4 firearms and drugs. Teddy was hit with a stack of charges: 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, 3 counts of aggravated assault, criminal use of an article with an altered ID mark, possession of marijuana with intent to distribute, and a probation violation. He didn't have bond at first, then he did, and he ran. 2 months later, they caught him and brought him back to Bibb County Jail. 7 years later, Teddy Jackson was still inside, and on January 11th, 2026, he was allegedly on the GD side when the fight broke out in that visitation room. He didn't make it out. May he rest in peace.
Apparently you can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wix Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible. Where vibe coding meets drag and drop freedom. We'll see about that. All right, let me try to make up a site to sell some like theoretical kombucha. Make me a site about kombucha. Make it look nice and pretty.
But Teddy wasn't the only gangster disciple who lost his life that day. The second victim's story hits different because he was counting hours, not years. Jimmy Lee Trammell, 42 years old, another alleged member of the GDs. Jimmy had been locked up since 2012, 13 years for first-degree burglary. That's over a decade of his life behind bars. But here's what makes this one hard to process. Jimmy was set to be released on January 14th, 2026, 2 days after he was killed. He'd recently been transferred to Washington State Prison, specifically because his release was coming up. That's protocol, moving inmates closer to processing before they walk out. Jimmy's family said the warden called his brother late Sunday night to inform him that Jimmy had been fatally stabbed during the fight, but the family had already heard. How? An inmate with a contraband cell phone had called them first. That's how connected the system is inside. Bad news travels faster through illegal phones than through official channels. Imagine that for a second. 13 years served, 48 hours away from walking out a free man, and then this. His family is grieving, and they're angry, because the question they're asking, and it's a fair one, is how does someone that close to freedom end up dead in a gang fight? May he rest in peace. Love and condolences to his family.
Rest in peace.
And then there was the youngest victim, 23 years old. Decades of prison time still ahead of him. But none of that mattered once the violence started.
Ahmed Hatcher was 23 years old. He was serving a 20-year sentence for aggravated assault out of Richmond County. 23 with 2 decades of time still ahead of him. That's the kind of sentence that makes you wonder what life looks like on the other side, if you even make it there. According to reports, Ahmed had allegedly joined the Bloods while he was incarcerated. Whether that was for protection, survival, or something else, we don't know. What we do know is that when the violence kicked off on January 11th, Ahmed Hatcher was in the middle of it, and he didn't make it out. May he rest in peace. Love and condolences to his family.
3 inmates are dead and a correctional officer injured. That's after an altercation at the Washington State Prison Sunday night. The men and the prison are on the screen behind me right here. Ahmed Hatcher, Jimmy Trammell, and Teddy Jackson died in what officials believe was a gang-related fight. Hatcher was serving 20 years related to an aggravated assault from here in Richmond County. Jimmy Trammell was serving 20 years for first-degree burglary out of Fulton County, and Teddy Jackson was serving 10 years for aggravated assault in Bibb County. Maggie Fitzgerald reports from the Washington State Prison tonight.
So now we've got 3 names, 3 men who walked into that visitation room and never walked back out. But what actually happened in there? How does a fight spiral that fast in a space where families are supposed to feel safe? An eyewitness who was there that day, visiting a loved one, spoke to the media. She asked to stay anonymous for her own safety, but what she described gives you a clearer picture of just how chaotic and terrifying it was. She said something felt wrong the moment guards started bolting out of the visitation area, leaving just one female correctional officer inside. Then she heard the walkie-talkies, loud, frantic voices. The officer was yelling, "Don't open that door. You can't come in here." At first, it was directed at inmates deeper inside the facility. Then it shifted. She was yelling at the visitors, telling them to get out.
Inside Washington State Prison, a Sunday brawl left 3 inmates dead and families searching for answers. But an eyewitness telling us today it all happened inside the prison's visitation area, where she says a group of inmates burst through the door, bloodied and armed, leaving visitors scrambling.
It's really just now hitting me how dangerous it really was, how much worse it could have been.
Tonight, an eyewitness says it all happened in seconds. A routine Sunday visit with a loved one at Washington State Prison turning into a nightmare. The witness asked to remain anonymous for her safety, but she says something felt off when she saw guards bolt out of the visitation area Sunday afternoon, leaving one female officer inside.
Something going on. We heard very loud, almost yelling coming from the walkie-talkies. You could hear her say, "Don't open that door, you can't come in here."
Shouting from the guard, first directed at inmates deeper into the facility, then to visitors, telling them to get out. The witness says the group overpowered a guard, taking his keys to then break into the visiting room.
The prisoners that were trying to come through the door were right behind her, hot on her heels, with blood and weapons, and they just busted through the door. They're standing between us and our loved ones.
The riot-style attack left 3 men dead, including 23-year-old Ahmad Hatcher. Hatcher's family says they are demanding answers and accountability, claiming he had warned his mother about unsafe conditions inside the prison.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want.
Won't do the crime.
Was torn out of my chest. It was
Rest in peace to the young man, though. Rest in peace
they
to
were a cause of my son to get killed because they wasn't doing their job.
And Sheriff Joel Cochran says the scene was secure and all inmates were accounted for by 6 p.m. on Sunday. GBC is investigating.
By 6 p.m. that evening, officials said the facility was secured and all inmates were accounted for. But the damage was done. 3 men were dead, 13 others were injured, and the families who witnessed it will carry that trauma for the rest of their lives. So here's the question nobody wants to answer. If gangs can coordinate from inside cells, if contraband flows like water, if violence can erupt in front of families during visiting hours, then what exactly is prison doing besides holding bodies in concrete until they either walk out or get carried out? Because from where I'm standing, this doesn't look like rehabilitation. It looks like a system that's given up. The Georgia Department of Corrections is investigating what happened on January 11th. They're looking into how inmates overpowered a guard and got his keys, how one officer was left alone in a visitation area full of civilians, why warnings about unsafe conditions, like the ones Ahmad Hatcher gave his mother, weren't taken seriously. But investigations only matter if something actually changes. And the pattern we're seeing at Washington State Prison isn't new. It's been building for years. Gang structures operating openly, contraband flowing in by drone, inmates running criminal operations from their cells using phones that never should have made it past the walls. So let's be honest about what's happening here. The prison system is supposed to be about punishment, rehabilitation, and public safety. But when street activities continue inside like nothing changed, when gangs recruit, coordinate, and execute violence behind bars the same way they do on the outside, then what's the point? If a 23-year-old can join a gang while incarcerated because that's the only way to survive, the system isn't rehabilitating anyone. If a man 2 days from freedom can get killed in a fight he may not have even wanted to be part of, the system isn't protecting anyone. And if families have to witness violence during visits because security can't or won't maintain control, then who exactly is this system serving? Like we said at the beginning, it's a world in itself inside this world. When you step into those prison walls, into that 4x4 concrete cell, everything changes. There's no running, there's no timeouts, and for some people, there's no coming home, even when their release date is already printed on paper. Teddy Jackson, 27, Jimmy Lee Trammell, 42, Ahmad Hatcher, 23. 3 men who didn't walk out of Washington State Prison on January 11th. 3 families planning funerals instead of visits. 13 others injured, including a correctional officer just trying to do their job. It's unfortunate, and it didn't have to be this way. Sending prayers to everyone affected by this story. Rest in peace to the victims, fam. Let me know how you feel about this one in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, remember, the choices you make out here determine whether you end up in there. And once those doors close behind you, there's no guarantee they're opening back up for you. Stay safe, stay wise, and thank you for joining.
Thank y'all. That was a nice thing, y'all. We want to stay out of jail, man. Because y'all really have to during the game. When I during the game, who that game beefing with, y'all got to go to war. Thank y'all. Can y'all please hit the like and subscribe button? Thank y'all. Appreciate that. Yeah, I couldn't hear that shit, but like what I was saying, like what I was saying. Yeah, well, it's good for y'all to stay out of there. Keep our nose clean. Keep God first. Keep our life first. Pray. Take care of your family. Kids, you got kids. Take care of your kids. Cousin, niece, and nephew, all the aunties, grandfather, grandmother, that take all of them, bro. Stay out the way, because jail ain't nowhere to be at. You're not safe in jail. You're not safe in the street. When you go to jail, you got to learn the game. When you learn the game, you know what time it is. So, hey, that's my whole thing. Stay out of jail, bro. Rest in peace to the 3 young brothers that lost their life. Yeah, please hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm out.